Hi, I'm Freya from Expecting. It seems to be the hottest day of the year. Now we're in the UK, so that is likely to change. However, it is so hot at the moment and I'm sure we're going to have some more hot weather. So if you're pregnant or you've got a newborn, how do you cope? In fact, anybody, how do you cope in this hot weather? So those of you who are pregnant, you are more susceptible to sun damage. So it is important to cover yourself up, but not entirely. It's actually really important that you get some vitamin D exposure. And so to do that, go out into the sun for half the amount of time, actually just less than half the amount of time being pregnant, than it would normally take you to burn. So if you would normally burn after 20 minutes, 10 minutes for example, or say 8, if you're pregnant, is a good time to go outside without covering up, without sun cream, to get some vitamin D. Then after that, use sun hats, use sun cream or light clothing just to keep yourself covered. Another good tip is you can eat dark chocolate because that actually helps prevent sun damage. And you know, we don't really need many excuses to eat chocolate. But those of you who like milk chocolate, switch to dark chocolate, get used to it because it is really good for you. So another tip is to get bottles and put them in your freezer, bottles of water. Remember when you do this that they expand so you don't end up with them exploding. But have one that you can keep drinking as it slowly melts, and particularly good to do overnight. So if you have it by the side of the bed, have a normal bottle of water as well, because otherwise you might just be there with a block of ice. And another tip for bottles of frozen water is to put them in front of a fan if you've got one. So fans just circulate the air, and if the air's warm, it's just circulating warm air. But if you put a bottle of frozen water in front of the fan, it will cool you down. Then if you find yourself really hot, you could put your feet in a bucket of cold water. That's always really refreshing. Those of you who are still at work and working at a desk, no one will know. Just pop it under the desk. One tip that you may find gross is put wet socks on. So get your socks, wring them out in some really cold water, pop them on as you go to bed, and you may well find that this cools you down. Now if you've got muslin cloths in ready for when baby arrives, get those, soak those in cold water, maybe even put them in the fridge for a while and then just lay them over yourself. That'll be really refreshing. And another great thing to do, especially at night time, is get your wrists and run them under cold water. So all your veins are at the surface on your wrists, and that's why it helps cool you down quicker than running another part of your body under cold water. Get hold of a cheap spray bottle which has got like a fine mist and just douse yourself down regularly. That's also a great tip for labour. And then if you've got moisturisers that you'd normally use, pop those in the fridge. So those can feel really refreshing when you put them on your face, especially on your legs and your ankles and feet. You might have to get someone to help you if you've got a big bump at this stage. This one sounds really obvious, but it's essential that you drink plenty. Pregnant women are often guilty of not drinking enough water because they're so worried about the fact that baby's bouncing on their bladder, they're going to keep needing to go to the loo. But on a day that's hotter than normal, it's absolutely essential that you drink more than normal. And if you've got a newborn, obviously avoid putting them in any direct sunlight. Keep them in the shade. Babies don't have as much melanin as we do, and this is to do with their pigment, so determining the colour of their hair, their eyes, their skin. But this also means that they don't have as much protection from the sun because they've got low levels of melanin. So make sure you put babies with plenty of sun cream on them. Any part of their body that's exposed, cover them in sun cream. Buy ones that are suitable for babies because they may well have quite sensitive skin. Always make sure they've got a sun hat on. Now have fun keeping that on. If your baby's starting to grab things, you will be constantly playing a game of putting it on and them taking it off. But it's really important that you keep them in a sun hat. Now one thing that people are often tempted to do that just makes me cringe, it's vital you don't do this, and that is to cover your car seat, your buggy or your pram with anything. Even something really thin like a muslin cloth will actually trap the warm air in with the baby and keep heating up, and they're just going to get hotter and hotter, and that's really, really dangerous. So be sure not to do that. If you're breastfeeding, you may well find that your baby wants to feed more frequently than normal, and that's okay, go with it. We're all needing to drink more. You may find that they have more frequent shorter feeds, and that's because they're trying to get off more of the watery milk that they get initially when they feed and less of the fattier milk that fills them up, just so they can quench their thirst, and that's okay, go with it. You don't need to give your baby anything other than breast milk if you're breastfeeding, so you don't need to give them any water. If you're bottle feeding, you may find that your baby would enjoy some cooled boiled water, but be sure that you give them this on top of their regular milk and not instead of. Keep a close eye on their nappies, so you should see at least 4 wet nappies a day. If you're unsure, because nappies are very absorbent these days, pop a cotton wool ball inside and then you'll soon see if it's wet. And just keep an eye that the urine isn't really dark, because if it's a really dark in colour, then that might mean that they're a bit dehydrated. If you are worried about your baby in any way, if they seem unwell, if they seem like they themselves have got a raised temperature, if they're not acting like normal, of course, always seek medical attention. If you've got access to a paddling pool, pop your baby in it. They'll love to play and splash. Get in it yourselves. And also give your baby a cooler bath before bedtime. Not cold water, but a cool bath. Do the same yourself. These are some tips that hopefully will help, and if you'd like more advice about pregnancy, birth and early parenting, please check out expectingclasses.co.uk.
Which category am I in?
Which category is she in? Pregnant or got a newborn?
God. Oh.